from Finland.
Okay.
Oh, we're here. We're live.
We're here. Okay.
No, keep going, Dave.
Okay, so we can keep going. So as I was mentioning to Tim off the air, since we are live, ladies and gentlemen, I actually had the opportunity. I've been interviewing more metal bands on my show. I've expanded into doing metal music. And my first guest this month was Amos. They are a metal band based out of Finland. They were incredible guests. Their album's amazing. Like Hour of the Wolf was. That's a hard life, ladies and gentlemen. I had to listen to Hour of the Wolf before I went on the air. Darn!
Yeah, Finland makes some good metal. I mean, like Amorphous. You ever heard of them?
Yes, they're sweet.
Yeah.
I'm more of a Nightwish guy. Like I love
okay,
Nightwish.
I like all sorts of metal. I like Nightwish.
I like European. I'm a European power metal guy at heart. I like other metal, but I love European power metal because it's very musically dense stuff. Because they do there's a lot of classical underpinnings in European power metal. Ironically enough, it's the metal for nerds. Like it really is.
I don't know progressive metal. And I mean, I like some progressive metal. Right up there to the progressive death metal level, like Opeth. Love Opeth.
Opeth's 50-50 with me. When they're on, they're really on. But when they're off, they have hits and misses.
That's a good point. A couple of their albums are actually, it's kind of funny because the first time I started listening to Opeth in college, so it was Watershed was my first Opeth album.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then I got into all their old stuff, but then when the first new one they came out with was Heritage after that, and I didn't like Heritage at all.
Yeah.
It's like it's the low point for me. But anyway.
Yeah. So hi guys, how you doing? Welcome to the show. This is your show. We've hijacked here.
Metalheads.
That's what we get for inviting podcasters on the show. So let's pause for a second. Say hi to everyone in the audience. Welcome back. This is Spilling Ink. We are the show that takes behind the book to meet the authors and professionals in the publishing industry. And these are familiar faces. If you guys have watched our show for any length of time, you know both of these. We've got Joshua Pantalleresco of Just Joshing and Tim Niederriter of Alive After Reading. They are some of our good friends who do a lot of podcasting on multiple subjects, but specifically, we always talk about our indie publishing friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How are we doing today, guys?
We're talking metal. It's already a good day.
I mean, it's only -10 out here.
Oof. Oh, that's too cold. No.
I was -30 earlier this week, and then now it's 4 degrees Celsius.
Okay, it's not a contest, Josh.
I win!
Yeah, you do, because it's 6 degrees here.
No.
It's been getting warmer today. I actually bet it's not even -10 out right now.
That's about how cold it was this morning, standing out. That's stupid.
Yeah.
So I guess I shouldn't complain that it's roughly 50 degrees out right now.
That sounds delightful.
No, 63. 63.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah,
I would be in a tank top and shorts in that weather.
I will say, in your defense, Katie, you live I realize this is just from my Arizona experience, right? When winter in Arizona came and it got to 75 degrees, I actually felt cold.
Yeah.
And I was like, how is this possible? And then you realize your blood thins in really, really hot temperatures.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
This feels like freezing to me. I know it doesn't sound like it's that bad.
No. But when you're so used, when you're so used to really hot weather, when it gets, it's not like it's weird because you don't actually feel cold exactly, but you're chilled, and it's just like, what the heck? Like, how did that happen? Whereas, right, like earlier this week. Sorry.
Yeah, when we were down in South Carolina, I was outside without coats, and everybody, all the South Carolinians, or however you say that, we're all bundled up with hats and gloves, and we're walking like.
Yeah.
I think Jane got.
She just froze.
Unfortunate screen to be frozen on.
Man.
Just talking about the coldness froze the screen.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
I think that is ironically the universe's gag on Jane. Sorry, Jane, but yeah.
Well, while we wait for her to come back here to be unfrozen, as it were, what do we want to talk about today, guys? Because you guys are very prolific podcasters and writers, so I mean, sky's the limit on where we want to go with this episode.
Well, we mentioned off the air platforms and how you have to build them in different ways. It was funny. I was doing a hey, welcome back. So real quick, Jane, when you said frozen, you froze. I thought the universe had a sense of humor on that.
Got him. Yeah.
right?
Yes, no, our internet kind of crapped out on
Yeah, it
all
happens.
of us.
It does.
Like
Well,
you all became black wheels.
yeah.
What the hell?
That sounds kind of esoteric when you say it like that, like some kind of symbol. You know?
So I'll be honest. Like today, like one of my clients, it was, I'm not gonna name names, but one of my clients was late for a payment, and I asked for like some freelance gigs. I got them, and I mentioned this earlier. And the thing is, it's really cool. Like I'm honestly eternally grateful to everybody that reached out and helped me out. Eternally grateful for that. But the thing is, the reason why I was able to get so much help so quickly is because everybody knows who I am. Right?
Yeah.
That's how it works, right?
And knows what you bring to the table.
Exactly.
Yep.
And the reason people know that is because I do a show 5 days a week on Twitch. I release an audio. Right now it's still at 4 times. I'm not quite where I was pre-Christmas in terms of my backlog, but I'm almost there. And when it does, it'll go to 5. I'm constantly churning out content on my platform, talking to authors and other creators. Like, so we were talking metal earlier. I'm interviewing metal bands now. I interview all over the spectrum now. I can't really say I'm a writing show anymore. I still interview a lot of writers. Don't get me wrong. But I just interview creatives, period. That's what I do, right? So everybody gets a sense of who I am and what I bring to the table.
Sure.
So and that's the thing, like any platform, like one of the biggest, and one of the clients I'm working with today, we were talking marketing stuff. Like what the thing is, you have to have an understanding as whether you're an indie author, whatever kind of creation you're doing. What are your goals? And the thing about that is, right? So the goal is, like my goal is to be available for everybody. Like I help people tell their story. That is basically, if you want to get to like my brand, I tell stories and I let people tell theirs. That's what I do. Doesn't matter what it is. I can do videos, I can do audio, I do voice, like whatever, right? That's what I do. So what happens is, right, I get known. I've been building this platform for a long time. My audience is solid. It's not the biggest audience, but it's not small anymore either. So now it's like I get to go out there. I get to voice my opinion. I get to go, hey, I need help. And people go like, okay, I'm a fan of this guy. How can I help this guy? And that's the thing. Like, I've built the platform that people know who I am. So when I do want to ask for help, I get it. It's an amazing thing. And this did not happen overnight, but it happened. And when it did, here I am. So
all right,
everybody out there to help me. Thank you.
Platform is the number one most important thing for you, right?
Yeah, and actually, I think what I bring to that is, to this discussion about platform though, is that I'm much earlier in the development of my platform, I think, than Josh is. Maybe not much earlier, but I'm definitely earlier, and I'm less successful so far as that goes. As far as developing the platform.
Are you earlier? When did you start your podcast?
Oh, it was like 5 years ago.
Oh,
Yeah, he's a little behind me. I'm at year 7. So just
to be fair, I had a podcast for 2 years before I started this podcast, before I started Alive After Reading. So we're about the same there. But my other podcast wasn't about anything that most people are interested in at the time. Though I think it would be more successful now because it was about RPGs, and RPGs really blew up more recently.
So I wouldn't necessarily say earlier, though. I would say, as we said before we started the show, you're more focused on the content creation than the platform itself.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point. I mean, I don't do as much to maintain my platform, maybe is what I'm doing, or to actively court people to add to my list of contacts or whatever. But I do really enjoy my show, but I do it mostly for fun. I consider the show mostly something I do because I like to talk to people, and it's the writing and now serialization of my I can't even point at it, but serialization of my fiction that is the part that's really building me up right now. Because for people in the United States, I'm on Kindle Vella, so that's where all my stories are. I probably should expand to some other sites because I'm allowed to. I mean, why not? I'm just lazy is all. I say I'm lazy, but I published 18 Kindle Vella stories.
You can't say you're lazy with all the work you put out.
No, I was just saying,
There's only so much focus you have during the day to get stuff done, and
that's true.
You'll burn out if you.
And I did this week. It was like multiple 10-hour days.
Okay.
Of just to get 18 chapters published this week, and I'm still behind the actual goal, which was 20. And I had to work today, which is I normally wasn't planning to work on the weekend.
Mhm.
So here's the question, because you guys both bring up two very important things. Content is very important. Platform is very important. But which one is the most important in terms of gaining that notoriety? Is it the amount you're putting out or the focus of what you're putting out?
I would say focus. I honestly would say it's focus. It's this is gonna sound very, very when you hear me out.
Okay.
It's not about your content as much as you think it is. And don't get me wrong, your content has to be good, right? Content has to be good. But the thing about it is, you could do a newsletter about your favorite football team. I'm not saying anybody here's a football fan, but it's about connection. That's what it's about. Like, it's about connecting to your audience. What audience serves you best? Okay. And that's a question all authors need to ask themselves, right? Because that's the thing. Now, I made this thing, and this is a decision on my part, that I would be a place where authors can come talk about whatever the heck they want, right? Whatever the heck they want, but also plug their stuff, plug their stories, but also establish a connection to my audience. Because that's super important, right? That's super, super important for people. We have to establish a connection, but there's a lot of different ways of doing that. I do it because I have an obnoxiously big mouth, and I'm good at that. But with Tim's doing it another way. He is serializing the story. He's getting people to invest in his worlds. And through that investment, he's establishing a different kind of connection that is still as valid as anything else. But right now, we're both prolific at what we do. There's no question about that.
Yeah. We kind of inverted. Sorry, just to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
We invert the focus a little bit. Yeah. Because you're focused on at least in the products anyway. You're focused on the podcasts and the more multimedia stuff, and I'm focused more on fiction. But we both do both. That's all I was going to say.
Yeah, but like that's the thing, right? I'm like, so for me, my fiction is like a passive thing, but the podcast is where again, it's just how it worked out for me. It's just the podcast is growing and still is growing. So it's where I've seen success. So therefore, I'm focusing on building it up more so. I broke 100 followers on Twitch. That might not seem like a lot, but that actually is pretty impressive, right? Oh, yeah. So, right, and I'm growing, and I'm still growing there. I constantly put out stuff here. There are days in the week I get 100, 200 downloads a day, right? I've been building this for a long time. I've had 1,000 download week. That's awesome. I did it once. I went and tried to do it again. And when I get to that point, I'll have a great platform, not just for myself, but for any author. And again, this is the equivalent of my newsletter, right? This is the equivalent of me doing a newsletter. I'm constantly putting out content to push people, podcasts, products, but I'm also talking to my audience. So ergo, I'm establishing a connection. People that know me know who I am based on that. Same with Tim. Tim does it again. Right, Tim. Again, it's a focus on like at some point, I'd love to do a serialized fiction story, and when that day comes, I'm going to go to Tim. Hey, buddy, can you give me some pointers? Mister, I'm a machine over here. But that all said, right? We both have created places for ourselves to do things, and people will kind of have expectations for both of us. As a result, Tim is building his fan base because everybody's wanting to see what he does next. What's the next thing in your story? What's the next thing? And I'm doing it's like, who's his next guest? What obnoxious thing is he going to talk about next? Right? Either way, we are both connecting to an audience. And that is the important thing. Your content, your contact. Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. That's the thing. And it doesn't matter what you choose. Honestly, the question is what serves you.
See, now there's the question, because, for example, putting out content on a regular basis. I did an experiment last year where I was doing kind of serialized readings every week. I was reading from a different chapter from my book. I did 2 books before I decided this isn't working. So I had a regular schedule. I had regular content I was putting out. with the attempt to engage with the audience, but it wasn't connecting. So if you're putting out content, but you're not hitting that connecting point with the audience, if the audience isn't reacting, you have to go, okay, this isn't working. Let's refocus. At what point do you figure that out though? Because you're passionate obviously about putting something out, about building this content and taking the time to put it out there.
Okay. So
I think it depends on the content, to be honest. But go on, Josh.
I had a question for Katie.
Did
you want was reading what you really wanted to do? I'm asking this like as a I want you to be honest about that. Did you really feel you were into that?
Yes, to an extent that it's a symptom of other ways I wanted my books to reach people.
Okay.
I figured reading was a easy stepping stone for people who don't have ebooks or who maybe don't have the money to purchase a book. If I can read and do a weekly connection with my audience this way, it would give them a chance to experience the book without having to purchase it, maybe get to know me. It was a kind of a brand creation sort of thing, but it didn't ultimately work in the end.
No, I get you. I see. It was weird for me because when I first did the podcast, it was purely out of like I wanted just to see where it would go. I kind of accidentally started it. That's another story for another day. We'll talk about that in another episode. I actually been reading about newsletters a little bit. I've seen some very interesting thoughts and ideas about them that I do want to try down the road. But here's the thing, right? There comes a point where it's just like, are you into it? Like there's somebody that's doing a podcast where I'm a big fan of, but she's not really into it. So we're wrapping it up. She's wrapping it. I actually encouraged her to wrap it up because it doesn't serve her. So it goes two ways. Sometimes something is not going to connect. Sometimes, and that's just the way it is. You can do everything right and it doesn't connect. My podcast, I wasn't sure was connecting. So I was approaching episode 150, just to give an idea. I'd done this for 150 episodes and I was about to quit. I'm going to be very honest. I was thinking about walking away because I wasn't sure who the hell was listening to my show. Then one day I get an email from somebody goes, "Dear Aurora Award finalist." Whoa, somebody's listening to my shit, right? And it was just at the right times. Like I need some kind of sign I'm doing the right thing, and I got it. Like right, bang, right, or right when I actually need it. It's like one of those things where I ask the universe and it gives. Note to self: ask the universe more often. You'll get stuff. But the thing is, I think not everything you do is going to work. Like just to be perfectly blunt, like not everything you're going to do is going to work. I think what everybody's going to kind of work at is, okay, it doesn't work. Is it something, again, personal, is this something you just feel like you just don't want to do? And then like subconsciously, like that's a big thing. The other thing is, okay, if that doesn't work, how else can I express myself or try to connect to an audience intimately and directly, right? There's lots of other ways of doing it. But it's like you give yourself a trial run. Like you tried it for 2 books and you said, nope. Okay, give yourself a fair time. It didn't work. So now you try something else.
And those episodes are still up there too. I never took them down because they are content. And if somebody happens to find them, better they find them late than never.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah,
I mean,
tail content, long tail content right now.
Ultimately, the experiment of reading every week, I think I had an every Sunday midday read that I was doing just didn't work the way I wanted it to. And despite, really putting forth an effort, I had to walk away from that because it was taking time away from other things and it wasn't giving the results that I was hoping for.
Yeah. And I mean, I've never really contemplated quitting the podcasting because even though, I mean, obviously my podcast is smaller than Josh's right now, I don't do the podcast strictly because I did it. I started out because I'm isolated. I live in a town of 10,000 people, and I frankly don't know anybody here anyway. So I want to talk to, people who are like me. I want to talk to other writers and stuff. And that was one where, I was just at first, at the time I'd been doing a podcast with my friend from college, and then we decided this. I did both podcasts for a while there. I was doing both, but then Mickey from Creative Edge approached me and asked me if I wanted. Apparently he'd been listening to my show, which I don't quite understand how that happens. But he ends up who can fathom the mind of a publicist? But anyway, he has suggested I start a show where I interviewed authors, and I did, and it's been a lot of fun. And I mean, it keeps connecting me with people, and that's really helpful. People like you guys, honestly. I mean, pretty much everybody here I met because of that, in some way or other. So, and but as far as the passion thing, it really does matter. I mean, like if I'm not confident in a work that I'm producing, whether it's a podcast or a book, I'm going to be awful at promoting it at the very least. And if I'm not confident in it, usually there's a good reason why. So if I trust myself now at this point. So if I don't like something, and I mean, I don't like it as in I've thought about it. And I mean, obviously this happens quite quickly these days because I write chapters and publish them in the same day a lot now. So I write them and edit and publish all in one day. And they're pretty short, but as long as they're satisfying to me, I can trust that they're going to satisfy someone out there, as long as they move the story forward. So I have to trust that that's going to work. But that's instinct at this point, in a way. It's a second instinct that are built up over all this time. I mean, I know I've had books that I'm like, this book is not quite there, and I still published it, and then I had to go fix it later because that was awful. It was like the first novel I dictated was like that, but it's all good now. That book, I mean, to put things in perspective, that's the one where the comparison is the most direct. Demon Scroll, because when I launched it in 2019, it was weak because I had not edited it appropriately, and it was my first dictated novel. So I thought I'm a good writer, which I am, but I never dictated a book before, and I dictated this one in 2 weeks, edited it over the course of a month, and it wasn't enough. And so by the time I turned around and said, this book isn't working in 2021, or no, it was 2020. I wrapped it up in December 2020. And after that, I mean, the mediocre reviews that were telling me like, yeah, I was right that this book wasn't ready for prime time, they went away. I mean, they didn't go away, but they stopped. The new ones stopped appearing because I re-released it. Much better book. Now we only get 5-star ratings on that one for some reason. And but it's because of confidence that it made me more confident to know that I could trust myself. Let me put it that way. And I don't know. That's kind of a tangent. But if your content isn't if your content isn't quality and you don't even like it, who's gonna consume it? Who do you expect to consume it?
And that's what go back to what I said. That's why I asked how serious you were, Katie, about it, because sometimes it's just a subconscious thing too, right? Sometimes you just inside you don't really want to do it, and it has this ability. Sometimes it does subconsciously affect how you present it too. I did, like when the pandemic first started, the very next day I started releasing my novel, and I realized that it wasn't enough. So what I did was I asked other authors to come and read their stuff on my show at the same time, adding a different experience to it, right? I think reading a story can be very powerful, because I look at what C.S. Lewis did during World War II with Mere Christianity, and it's like, wow, that's an amazing gift. But you have to really believe it. You really, really do, or else it just won't fly. Now, if you did, having said all that, on the flip side, you can still do everything right, and it doesn't work. It does. That is a reality. But at that point, okay, you did everything you knew how to do. It didn't work. You acknowledge this, right? And you acknowledge this. You go, fair enough, right? Fair enough. It didn't work. And then you move on. You try something else, right? And that's it, right? That's all there really is to it.
Yeah, and it's rough though, because there's so much effort put into the content you create. So there's a bit of, I think, the ego you guys might agree with me here, that kind of gets hurt, and it's like, why didn't it work? I put the effort in, damn it. And now I have to rethink and restructure again and find something new to put out. So there's like an element that kind of sours you against doing something else, even though ultimately you have to keep trying if this is your goal.
Have you ever heard the paradox of success?
No,
I guess not. Okay, so
maybe.
This is from comic book creator Colleen Doran. Check out A Distant Soil. It's amazing. Everything she does is incredible, but I love her Distant Soil. She said this once, and I took this to heart. The thing about success is it's not guaranteed. You can do absolutely everything right, absolutely everything, and still fail. That's just the way it is. Life is not fair, period. Right? At the same time, if you don't do those steps, you're guaranteed to fail.
Yes.
That's just the way it is.
Yep.
So your job, and like, it's easier for me to do this with my art because I'm just having fun with it. But I really like, one of the things drawing has taught me is it's not always about being good or perfect or right. The job is just to put stuff out there. Like, the one thing that Tim mentioned that really impressed me is he writes and puts stuff out the same day, and he just doesn't stop. Thing is, there's power in that. There's a momentum that builds, and every time he's doing it, he's also getting better. Like, because he's putting stuff constantly out there. Now, not everything he does is going to work. I'm sure he'll attest to that. But here's the thing. He's constantly doing everything he knows how to do it right. And as a result, again, you're not going to swing perfectly. It just doesn't work that way. But what it does do, even your failures, quote unquote, your failures, might lead to things down the road. Some of my biggest failures, like, I did a book way back in 2006. I did nothing right with that book. Absolutely nothing. I did absolutely nothing right. But I learned so much, and everything I did from that book led somewhere. All of it did, just not necessarily right away. So what I will say to people is, even your failures can sometimes lead to good places. Like, who knows? Someone may listen to your stuff. Someone they she's got a voice for audiobooks. The next thing you know, you're making stupid money putting together an audiobook. It could happen. I'm not saying it will.
I agree. And that's the reason I never delete the stuff that I post, because it's there. I put the effort in. It's there. Somebody might find it later, on to the next thing, whatever that may be.
That is funny coincidence there, Josh, because my 2006 novel, at that time, I was only writing one novel a year because, full disclosure, I was a student. Back then,
writing one novel a year.
Well, I was in high school. That was my second novel only, I think. No, that was number 3. That was number 3, I think.
Okay.
I can't remember. Whatever, doesn't matter. But this book was the one I took to my senior high, like, final project or whatever that my school was requiring at the time. And through that I met one of my best friends, because the English teacher who was the director of that program read my story for some reason. I forget. My twin brother must have been in her class at the time. So I never met her, really. And then she's reading one of my stories, this novel I wrote in 2006. And that's kind of how we got started with that relationship, which is just like, then she became my mentor, and now we're just friends. But it's this crazy, like, very helpful thing that the universe does. You know, like you said, it reaches out and gives you what you need if you ask. And putting my book out there, it got me some confidence, because I never had a reader who actually liked my crap before. And at the time, I agree. And that's another example of, like, it wasn't a particularly good book, especially by my standards now. I was 16. What was I going to do?
That's balls, man. Honestly. So
yeah, well, I was 18.
Yeah. So this is kind of one of my life lessons. Like, I put into this. Everything I do now, doesn't matter what it is, right? I always just ask myself this question. I'm okay with failing. It hurts the ego a little bit, but my ego can take a little bit of a beating. Big head, it happens, right? So here's the thing. This is the question I asked myself. Did I do everything I knew how to do to get the thing done? That's it. That's all I care about. Because here's the thing. If I did everything I knew how to do right, and this was the result, I can live with that. It's when I get in my own way, that's when I'm mad. That's what pisses me off. If I fuck up on, like, if I mess up,
that's okay.
Yeah, if I mess up because of me, that's when I did wrong. I don't worry so much anymore about, do I hit a best? I don't care. What I hear is, I did everything I knew how to do to create the best product imaginable, and it will go where it needs to go. That's it. I don't care about anything else. I would like more, sure, but I also am confident enough in myself that inevitably the right people will, I have faith in this, the right people will come along at the right time to get my stuff. My job is not to screw it up myself. If I can do that, I'm good.
Okay. All right. Well, let's shift focus just a little bit then, because we talked content versus,
Platform.
Platform. Thank you. See,
That's
COVID brain's
okay.
still happening.
Yeah, brain
But
fog.
content versus platform. So we see both of your approaches to this. Now let's focus in a little bit more on how do you approach structuring your episodes? How do you approach getting the people on? Who do you go after? How do you find people, or how do people find you?
So that's interesting. At this point, I have the same approach when I started. I'm open to practically anybody. I just get bolder and I ask for bigger stuff now. That's all. I have big head and I just go for bigger stuff now, right?
With great power comes great responsibility.
Hey, listen.
And you can always ask. They can say no, but
exactly.
That is true. That is true.
No.
That's the worst that can happen is they say no, or maybe
So
they
let
block
me
you.
tell you a fun little story.
yeah.
Let me tell you a-
No is a scary word. I'm like, oh, but
No, it's not.
don't
You
say
know what? I
no.
know. I respect. No, seriously, I respect no. If you tell me no, I respect that. You're giving me a clear-cut answer, and I'm good with that.
Yeah.
It's when you jerk me around. It's like, don't waste my time. All right, just give me a yes or no. I'm good with it either way. I have no hard feelings.
What about the non-answer though? Like, let's say you found somebody you really wanted to bring on.
No. See, even that, I'm perfect with that because this
Really?
tells me. No, so here's my personal philosophy with everybody. I've said this before on to many people. People do exactly what they want.
True.
If you see their actions are giving you, believe them. They're not okay. Cool. You don't want to comment? Move on. I don't care who you are.
I love
right?
how you're like the direct opposite of me. Like I'm
No,
scared,
don't
say no, don't ridicule me. And you're like, fuck it, I'm just gonna say whatever I want and ask for whoever I want.
Yeah. No, because
that's why he and I get along so well.
That's why you and I get along so well too.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's just like, look, I'm not afraid of a no. I'll give you a fun story. So the Aurora I won, right? That year, like I mentioned this earlier. I got while I was getting my first Aurora pin, Spider Robinson walks by. And I actually gave him his replacement Aurora pin. Now, if anyone doesn't know, Spider Robinson is a legendary science fiction author and journalist. He's amazing. I went to his Beatles concert. He actually did a Beatles it was freaking cool. So the next day, I was supposed to interview the guests of honor at the con. He said yes. In all fairness to him, he blew me off, but in all fairness to him, he was not having a good experience at the con, and I understood why to some extent. I got it. Now, it still was a bit of a dick, but I could live. I understood at least some of where he was coming from at that weekend. Now, I walk by and I see Spider checking out at the hotel. In my voice, like, the worst he can say is no. So I go up to Spider Robinson and help him out with directions, and then he goes, "Would you like to come on my show?" He gives me his phone number, his email. We have one of the coolest hour-long conversations ever. We talk about his time at the White House, his finishing Robert Heinlein's book. And then I think the most amazing part of the conversation was he was talking about his now departed wife. It was an incredible conversation. And if I hadn't asked, it never would have happened. Mm-hmm. So it taught me. And so I've had Kelly Armstrong on my show. I asked her. I've had Jonas Saul. I asked him. Right? So I have learned that just ask. Who cares if they say no? If they give you a non-answer, I had one guest that was started so this is where I can be a bit of a prick. If someone goes to me when we have agreed to do a show, hey, listen, I can only do like a set amount of time, I drop them. I want at least an hour of your time now at this point. Give me an hour. Right.
I agree there. I tell people who've talked or who've emailed us about the show, our time slot is 1 hour. You are committed to 1 hour. You don't have a mic, can't be on. Don't have a camera, can't be on. Mm-hmm. There are hard and fast rules.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Again, going back to my philosophy, people do exactly what they want to do at all times. I will forget. I don't grand scheme thing. I just don't care. If you don't want to do it, you're going to tell me, and I'm going to respect you. I will also call you out on it if you're being a dick. I will do it. Like, I am that asshole. But that's the thing, right? I don't worry about the non-answer. I don't worry about the no. It's like, you know what? Just be clear. Now, if you're going to be demanding, or you're going to wait to the last minute to tell me your little special rules, I'm just going to drop you. I don't care that much. I just don't. So I have made that decision, right? So I have no fear. you would be amazed at some of the people I've asked to go on the show. I have heard non-answers from. I don't care. I'll ask again. I just don't. I have no fear.
Oh, Margaret's got an interesting one. She said, I just had a situation where I asked a person 1, she didn't respond to the email or reminder for 3 weeks. So I asked person 2, who said yes. And then the next day, person 1 said yes. Oh,
it happens.
That's when you have to
That's when we do a group show.
You were given the opportunity. Sorry, your spot's been booked. There's another space available if you can confirm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
But again, I don't get mad at people anymore. You do what you want, right? Here's the thing. I am honest enough and blunt enough to call you on it. That doesn't mean you're right.
That's where you and I are similar, because if I've confirmed a booking with somebody and they start jerking me around after that, done. We can drop it. No big deal. I don't have a problem with that side of it. For some reason, I have a problem with the other side. But once we're booked and we've got a schedule going, you screw my schedule up, you're done.
Note to self: don't
I
mess
live
with
by
your
that calendar,
schedule.
damn it.
Don't mess with Katie's schedule.
Yeah.
Never do that.
Again, I don't have many like cardinal sins, but the biggest one in me is so I hate passive aggressiveness. I will work with you, but I have an asshole tax for that. And but number 2, I don't like my time wasted. Just don't waste my time. That's it. Just, if you don't waste my time, I don't care what you want to do. Like I'm being blunt.
From the other end, as the podcaster, when you scheduled somebody, you actually have to be there no matter what's going on in your life.
Yes.
You remember me having John Mayberry on, and I was at the funeral. The funeral, everybody in the family was in the other room for my brother-in-law. So it just happened to, land on that. But I had booked him in advance before they did this, the thing. So it's like, I gotta be there.
And you don't and if you got a guest like Jonathan Mayberry, you don't want to miss that. Come on.
No.
It's an opportunity.
Yeah. We've had him a couple times.
Margaret, if they never apologize,
that's just like
that's how I look at it.
Off the list.
Yeah, seriously. I didn't
have
I've had guests cancel, especially.
Is it a no-show after they've confirmed and everything, or is it a no-show like they never got the schedule? Because I know lately, especially with Spilling Ink, I don't know why Gmail has been putting our stuff into spam folders. So I will send out emails and people won't confirm with me because it's in their spam. They never saw it. So in those instances, I've had to kind of go, all right, it wasn't their fault, but still frustrating.
So I have a hard and fast rule. So I had a guest. I'm not going to name names because it's not my business to name the person. He goes to me, I can't do the show. My grandmother's got stage 4 cancer. I get that. I'm not. Okay. I don't even argue. Like that is shit happens that I'm good with. I understand what's going on. Right. I am all like think life happens to us all. Right. And as long as as long as I have an idea what's going on, I'll forgive you. It's not. There's one person I booked in October, but she was supposed to come on the show this week. And she's like, I can't do it because I'm sick. And I get it. Like, I'm not going to hold that against somebody. So we reschedule. It happens, right? That's part of the gig. That's part of the gig. It's when there's a difference between, hey, I have a real issue versus, hey, I got these weird demands now that we are so close. No. So you're done. I'm out. I don't care. Right.
Yeah.
Joe uses Facebook Messenger. Yeah, but that also puts you in a spot where you're constantly having to grab people on a different platform. So if you're willing to do the extra work, absolutely. If that's your style, you go for it. But, for like Spilling Ink, for us, we use... Weird. We use the Google Calendar. And the messages go out, and we have our scheduled emails with the show links and all that go out on those specific days. So it's kind of like if you agreed to the calendar invite and you're not seeing things pop up, that's on you.
Yeah. So, but like I said, there is a real if it's a genuine thing.
Josh, I mean, I zoned on you on the first time I don't remember the conversation the first time I was supposed to come on, and you're like, "Are you ready for tonight?" I'm like, "What?"
Mistakes were made.
Yeah, it happens,
yes,
right?
yes.
Life happens.
I was just like, I know. Like, we did say something, did we? I don't know.
Yeah, times of
I think
confusion is
we
very
said in
real, Anita.
passing,
Yes.
like,
Yeah,
like
I was
you
gonna
know,
say.
drinking.
Yeah.
You know, but it was just, I felt so bad because I didn't remember at all.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, that's not like me. Katie will tell you, I'm normally pretty.
We're all human. We all make
Yeah.
mistakes. I did that actually this month. I missed a guess because I screwed up on the time zone. It was I don't make those mistakes very often, but it does happen. Like, again, we're all human, right? And that's cool. Like, again, a genuine mistake is totally forgivable, right? It totally is.
Yeah, it's always fun when you double book and you didn't realize you double booked. I was doing a Facebook takeover and a podcast at the same time.
You were a busy lady.
Oh my God. Like, I don't ever want to do that again. And I think I did good on both. I don't know.
Margaret brings up a good point here too.
Yeah.
There are legitimate reasons for excused absences. And
You know,
I think we
having
all,
no
we've
voice.
dealt with it. Our guest this week, we had a COVID emergency, so they had to back out. We understand. That's not the negatives we're talking about. We're talking about the deliberate not showing up, not responding, those kind of things that are like, you know, you're a bad guest. We're not going to have you back. Sorry.
I had one. Sorry, I had one guest. I still remember her. I'm not going to name names again because I doesn't need to. She showed up for a stream, left the stream like 10 minutes, and it's like, I'm sorry, I just wasn't comfortable coming to your schedule. It's like, okay, no problem. And then once we make the right.
Oh, we got called out by Joe.
Yeah, technically, I did cancel on Joe.
I actually don't think I have canceled on Joe.
A week ago. Yeah, for this last week.
Yeah, I did as well because I was like, yeah, I thought it was 9 a.m. and it was actually noon, and I'm like, I'm not going to be here at noon. I
canceled on Joe because I had COVID. Okay, that's the only time I've canceled on it to my knowledge.
Yeah.
If I remember.
So, like I said, I don't think I have, but it's possible. Things happen.
Oh, and I also jumped in on another of his shows and replaced it, and another guest who didn't make it earlier. So hey,
yeah.
We've had guests show up hours ahead of time and then frantically email us going, "Where are you?" And they didn't look at the time zone.
It happens.
It legitimately happens.
It was 4:30 on the Eastern.
I had to. So again, I interviewed a moth from Finland. I really had to make sure I was on my game because that's 8-hour difference, right? It's like, oh, I better know what the hell I'm doing here, right?
Yes.
Or was it like a 10-hour difference, right? So, yeah. I mean, you just have to be what's the term?
On top of it.
Yeah, you really do.
Yeah.
And I've screwed up. We've all done it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. You know, it's funny though. Actually, one of my favorite guests. I'm not sure if I've had him on once or twice. I've talked to him a few times outside of the podcast, so that's why I get confused. But Yadanja Wijaratne, I think I'm saying his name correctly. He's from Sri Lanka, and that's where he lives. And he's a really great author, hard science fiction, and he but it's the middle of the night when it's like the 13-hour difference. So when I'm awake, he's asleep basically, and vice versa. Luckily, he's a night owl. I mean, like normal people. I mean, in Sri Lanka would be asleep when I'm awake, but he's a night owl, so it works out. But it is a weird situation, you know, by far one of the weirdest. I think that's the farthest I've gone. I mean, I think I've interviewed people on Australia and stuff, but it's different, you know.
I've interviewed on.
I'm familiar with those time zones more, I guess.
I've interviewed on it people from every continent at this point, so it's cool. Except for maybe Africa. I don't think I've interviewed anyone there, but I've interviewed pretty much everywhere else. It happens, right? I usually use I always look at the GMTs. Like I just look at it's just a good way to figure it out. But yeah, like I said, legitimate things happen, and that's the thing. And people own up to it. It is so forgivable. It is absolutely forgivable. It's when they don't. And at that point, it's just like it's like anything else in life. Do you want to be here? You'll show up, or if something happens, you'll communicate with me. If you don't, I don't care.
Yeah.
All right, we're going back to that because we got your side, Josh, but I don't think we got Tim's side of how he seeks out his guests.
Oh, I don't. I'm honestly, I barely seek out my guests. Sometimes when I want to do a special show, like for New Year's or whatever. I'll go and ask a specific person or an old friend or someone like that. One of my contacts that I'm aware of, like Like I think like this year, I think it was Alistair Stewart was my New Year's show, no, or maybe he was my Christmas show. I forget. No, he was Christmas, and then I had my buddy Reinhardt Suarez for New Year's, and I asked both of them specifically, but they're not. But mostly, I just get clients sent to me from publicists. So it's really easy for me because, and that's important because I spend all day writing, all week, and so I'm fried. So my brain is fried, and I don't have time for. And often I've never spoken to the person. I mean, I'll communicate with them by email, but I've never. I don't have time to do any preparation for my show, and that's my style, I guess. Because if I did, it would all go out the window anyway. That's how I write fiction. That's how I do podcasts.
That can be a hit or miss though.
Simple,
when you have a publicist send you a list of people, if you don't look them up ahead of time, sometimes you get people that are really not fitting with your podcast.
That's
style.
true, and that has happened. That has happened. I have gotten people on like. I'm not going to name names, obviously, but But I've gotten people on. I'm like, why am I talking to this person? This is crazy. One of them actually offended me deeply. Like the content of their work offended me so much that I'm like, please don't ever send that one around again. And generally, that and it may not be what you think. I mean, I promise you, it isn't what you think. I mean, I'm not offended by any kind of fiction. Let me put it that way.
Sometimes things just don't mesh well. That's all.
But there's just like it was something that's like. My personal philosophy sees this as kind of abominable, so I'm sorry. I don't think I can. I was hard enough to do that one episode.
Yes.
I'm not going to do it again. And there's some people I wouldn't ask again, like because early on I'd ask more people because I was getting so many people sent by the publicist, so by Mickey mostly, and it was weird because sometimes I get people who are like, "Wow, you can't hold a conversation." I mean, at least I can't hold a conversation with you. It's just not a good matchup. And that happens, I mean, at least for me, I'm such I thought I could talk to anybody. I learned to talk to nerds at conventions, and I thought it was a lot, and I just think it's a ton of fun. Not to characterize all authors as nerds, but hey, the vast majority of us kind of fit that description to some degree or other. But if I get somebody who's not a talker, that's tough.
Yeah.
And if I get someone who talks too much, I'm probably not going to ask them back because I like to get my words into. or if I ask them back, I'm gonna make a note. I don't have to do any prep for this one. I don't even think about it because they're gonna run me over every time. I had this great author on who's I'm a big fan of, and I can say her name because this was actually a really good podcast. Rachel Aaron of Nice Dragons Finished Last, the Eli Mon Press books. She's great. Oh, and 2K to 10K, which was the reason I wanted to talk to her in the first place, which is this nice how to write 10,000 words in a day, basically go from writing 2K to 10K.
Wow. Okay.
And but she's also quite a talker, which I did not know because I'd never heard her talk before. and then suddenly it's just I'd heard her on a few other podcasts, but then suddenly it's just bam, this conversation is over. This is not a conversation. This is her talking. Maybe she should have a podcast. You know what I mean? I think she'd do well with that. But it was a lot of fun. But it was a very unusual show for me. Also, it's also kind of like honestly being on a show with Josh. If I don't get if we're not passing around the talking stick, sometimes it's tough to get a word in there. But hey, that's fine. I mean, that's talkers for you, and it's a good time regardless. Yeah.
So. I'm at that point because I've done so many interviews. There's almost no one I can't talk to. I had a guest like last week, Louis Bravo. He doesn't like to talk much. He prefers just to draw covers, right? We still had a fun conversation because again, he was just for him. I've dealt with illustrators who are just naturally quiet people. That's it. That's just who they are. There's nothing wrong with that. He knew he needed to do an interview just to get comfortable and able to do some things, right? And so I was a good interview for him because the other big skill an interviewer has to do eventually is you have to learn to carry a conversation with quiet people if you get one. Quiet doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad interview either. It just means that it's not their first language sometimes. It's just they would prefer to express themselves in other ways. That's not a crime. You just have to recognize when you go into those interviews that you're going to be the one carrying the conversation, That's
and you got to pull things out of them in a way that makes them comfortable.
It takes time. They do thaw out usually as the interview progresses too. So you can actually take more of a backseat as time goes on. The big secret there is you've got to be willing to make them comfortable. Just whatever there's a friend of mine. She's a Tonka poet. She likes Tonka. She does poetry that way. She doesn't talk much. It's not her thing. But I ended up getting her to talk about her dreams of Cthulhu. That's a pretty cool thing to pull out of conversation, right? So that's the thing, right? Everybody's got an interesting story. As an interviewer, you have to recognize when the person needs to talk and when you need to listen and when you need to talk to make them comfortable. Again, I've done a lot of interviews. This is not an overnight skill, right? It's something you learn as you go. But if you can, again, it's about, that's it. Like you make people comfortable, then you'll get more out of them. But sometimes, again, it's not their first language. And what I mean by that is they rather draw a cover, they rather perform a song, or heck, not their first language is Finnish. So it's just again, it's just about exercising a little patience. You do that, you can, even with quiet people, you can get an amazing conversation. It may not be as long as some interviews, but it doesn't have to be either, right?
Yeah, good point.
True.
That's a really good point. I mean, and obviously you all of you, I mean, doing an hour-long show, that's probably tougher for some people than a lot of us. I mean, I only do a half-hour show, and I can cut mine short to 20 minutes, as short as 20 minutes if I feel the need, or if I feel like the conversation's over, or sometimes there's just stuff going on, But usually it's effortless to get to 30 minutes after, not very long. And I don't know. I mean, obviously my show is a casual conversation. I don't consider it even an interview show anymore, but it started out as much more of an interview. And I stopped doing that because it wasn't as much fun. Obviously, everything I do is motivated by how much fun I'm having. So it's that simple for me.
That's exactly why we don't do the interview style either. It's so much better when you can get a conversation going, and it actually disarms people a lot when you can get into conversation rather than asking a direct question, because those people who have stage fright or who aren't talkers freeze up when they're asked that direct question.
Yeah.
Can I? Sorry, I just would say, like, what I've learned about direct questions is the shorter the show, the better the direct questions are, because you don't have the time. You don't have the time to do that thing. But the longer your show is, the less natural those questions sound. That's right.
Right.
Yeah, if you're doing bullet points and everybody has to answer this. I've been on shows where people, I've been a guest on shows where people they would always answer, everyone's asked a bulleted list of basically like 6 or 7 questions right at the beginning. And then there's some stuff about your book and then you're done. Yeah. And that's frustrating to me. I don't enjoy doing those that much. I know some people are going to like it, but I'm not just here to get my be on record or something. Like, that's not why I go on a podcast.
Talking points, man. Talking points.
That's also not why I do. I mean, it's funny because there's no. I mean, is this fun for people? Do people enjoy listening to this? I guess some people do. They feel like they learned something to add to a trivia catalog or something, maybe, but not something that would entertain me. I don't know.
But the thing
in
is,
some ways, I think they're doing it for the structure. If you bring a bunch of people on, you've got to kind of, it's herding cats. You've got to find the way to get everybody on the same page and doing the same thing within your limited amount of time. So I get it from a structure standpoint. These shows were only I was the only guest on, just so I'm clear. Right. Oh no, if you're the only guest, it was
weird. Like there was no room to play.
Yeah, there's like the cookie cutter.
If it's 10 minutes, if it's a 10-minute interview, that's the only time that's acceptable.
That's fair.
That's it. Because again, if you don't have that much time, then okay, fine, I get it. But
Anita goes for the books rather than the author. Yeah, authors are so much better at talking about their books.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm pretty bad at talking about my books. I don't have much practice doing it, to be honest.
But are you better at talking about your books or your person?
Oh, my person, definitely.
Really? Oh, see that again.
Yeah, I mean,
opposite.
I
I'm
love
all
that.
over the place.
Weirdly, I could talk. I mean, I could talk about myself forever. I guess that's because I'm kind of narcissistic. But I can't. But talking about my books is tougher because I'm not as because I mean I'm very close to them, but I'm not as I don't understand them the way the way I do myself at this point. You know.
Well, that's the thing. That's like Jane was one of my favorite guests last year because like it was so nice to be someone that just like you doesn't care. Let's just go where we want to go, right? And that was such a blast. Yeah, whatever. We'll go wherever you want. Okay, that makes this really easy, right?
And then I'm old, right?
Well, no, you're still incredibly free spirited. That's why I love you. So it's like.
Yes, I left him speechless.
That's hard to do. That is really hard to do. You get a gold star for that.
Yeah, geez.
Yeah, no, she's done it a couple times. It's just like, wow. But here's the thing. The reason why she can do it, she doesn't give a crap, and that's wonderful. So sometimes she'll even hit me. And I'm like, whoa, I did not expect that. Awesome. I don't have a response, right? Because if sometimes it's like, what can I say? Like, what can I say, right?
Yes.
That's why I love interviewing her too, because it's just like she can do that to me. Right?
It's a joy. I'm sorry.
It's fun though. I get it.
That's one of the things I enjoy about was at the beginning of my show. I remind the guests always I have an explicit tag in case you want to use it. For the kind of things that make you, maybe if you're surprised or something. I mean, I don't know. Most of the time they're like, nah, I don't need to swear. But it's very funny to me that I have to mention it just in general because going down the list at the beginning if they're new to the show, and it's how I warm up too. It's like okay, let's do. I do my bulleted list before the recording even begins. That's generally how I roll.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you have like the 7 dirty words list?
No, I just do. There's like 2 things. I just tell them the basics of the show, just so they know where we are. But it's just okay. Explicit tag, casual conversation, about 30 minutes. Go. Oh, and I'm going to ask you one question to start with, and then we're going to go from there. That's basically how it rolls.
And we kind of generally before the show we go, okay, what do we want to talk about, guys?
Mm-hmm.
Because rather than give our guests, the hard and fast list of here's the topics, we want our guests to tell us what they're most interested in talking about. Because if they're leading with their interest, they're going to be more engaged with the show.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And
it's fun. It's fun to see what other people, what the ideas come into their heads. Because sometimes we're just like,
I know I'm a little late with this, but I probably should have started that I'm interested in squid people, but never mind.
See, there you go. We could have gone a whole
knows
different direction.
Oh no. So Tim, do you want to say what we talked about on the show? We're probably
it's already public. You might as well.
Yeah. So we came up with again. A friend of mine had died, or a girl the day of. I told Tim, listen, let's just do something happy. I need something kind of cool. So we just went off the deep end. We ended up agreeing on doing a really on purpose 24-hour comic that's going to be deliberately bad. Right?
I can't draw. Right. You're still new at it. Let's see how this goes.
Exactly. But the thing is, we even came up with a story structure. It ends with the Squid Queen. I'm just going to tell you everything.
Yeah. We have no spoilers right now. No big spoilers. But
but we're not worried. But we came up with a story structure that's going to work. It's going to work with both of our limitations perfectly.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be good, and it's going to be wonderful.
But I actually find that this is one thing I want to add, though. It goes back to the content creation part of things. But I find that if you do something and you think it's too much or it's too bad or it's something, but you like it, that's the stuff I get the most positive response on with my books. I mean, there is stuff in there that's like it was too personal. Like I'm embarrassed to release this, and I don't even write stuff that's risque most of the time. At least I don't think I do. But for some reason, every fantasy series I have involves stuff that is best left unmentioned. But I'm embarrassed to talk about it. I can write a book about it, but eventually there's tentacles involved. Let's leave that the rest to your imagination. And sometimes it's right away, and sometimes it takes a while, but eventually there are tentacles.
Okay.
And people respond to that apparently.
But something he said, I'm just going to reflect on. This goes back full circle. if you feel something with what your content is, other people are going to feel it too. That's just the way. If you can laugh at your own terrible jokes, somebody else will laugh at their own terrible jokes. So if you feel like, oh my God, this is terrible, somebody else is going to feel that too. It's just, there's something about what we put on the page that we feel that translates. So that's a very important thing. And this doesn't just apply to the written word. It applies to everything we do. If you're generally enthusiastic about something, other people will be enthusiastic. If you're generally inspired, there's other people are going to be inspired. Human connection is not that hard in one sense, in the sense that we all feel the same things on some level. It's just finding those specific people that kind of feel like you do. At
the risk of jumping at the last second here, it's the mirror neurons. It's the stuff like you see somebody doing something, you think, oh, that could be fun, or or you feel like you're doing it yourself. That's one part of it. But then also but more directly, it's, oh, they're having fun, I'm having fun, they're doing something cool, I'm doing something cool is the vibe. Yes.
I'll vouch for that.
I assume those tentacles are eating people or something, like in
Probably.
like Betrayal on House of the Hill. That was a fun one. But anyway, it's you're giving people license to agree with you, kind of, by putting out a piece of work, whether it's a podcast or a piece of fiction. Or, I mean, they can disagree, but that's actually less likely because people are downright friendly when you think about it. And in terms of if they're giving you their time, they're giving you a chance. They want you to succeed in a weird way. In the most basic way, it's like they're gambling on you succeeding, so they will have a good time. And investment is a powerful bias. So eventually, even if they don't think they would like something, they'll like it if they like. If book 3 of the fantasy series, there's suddenly a giant walking castle with tentacles involved, well, the people are going to like that because they've already read 2 other books and they know they like it and like my books, that kind of thing.
Let me give you probably the best marketing story I had. Because again, going back to the book, I did everything wrong at my very first book signing. But I learned probably the most valuable lesson in marketing I've ever learned. It was in this signing. I did everything wrong. On top of that, the store was located in this like isolated place. No one could see the store. So this is what I did. I had the owner's son had a printer. I printed out giant arrows and I taped them to the sidewalk. Do you know what happened? People followed it. Lots of people were just curious where it went. They kind of wanted to know. I learned one of the most valuable lessons of marketing, period. Try to sell someone a product and like, just like, oh, no, I don't want to do that. But get them to play. Give them permission to have fun. You got them. That's why one of my things I did at When Words Collide is I did the Dr. Seuss stuff. Do you know what I did? I got people to read Dr. Seuss in as many silly ways as possible. It's my easiest panel to do. It is so freaking easy to do for me because all I'm there to is to basically give people a license to have fun. The thing fills up every time I do it now. Because I'm giving people permission to goof off.
Yeah.
Right? If you can give people permission to play, to feel something, people will do it. I learned that way back in my first sign, which was an abysmal failure, and I'm taking the full blame on it. It's my fault. But even in going back to something I said earlier, your failures can lead to successes too. It's what you learn from it. And what I learned in my first book more than anything else, the biggest lesson I learned from my first book. One, you got to yell, get scream, here I am. But the other thing you got to do is you got to make it fun. Because if you make it fun, people will have fun with it too.
And sometimes fun is not what you'd expect.
All right. Well, those are some good parting thoughts. We have hit our hour mark. So we're going to have to say goodbye for this week. But before we do, I want you guys to tell everyone where to find you. We will, of course, always put your links in the show notes. So we're going to start with Tim. Where can people find you?
Well, it's on the screen, timniederriter.com/serialized-fiction. That's my website. You'll find all 10 serial stories that I'm writing in weekly on that page. That's the best place to go. You can also find a link on that same page. It'll take you to the podcast at mentalcellarpublications.com. And that's awesome. Me in a nutshell.
As for me, ladies and gentlemen, Just Josh and the podcast is available on practically any audio platform you want. Right there, it's everywhere. It's like a plague; it won't go away. Go watch the show, right? Go watch the show, or listen to the show. You can watch the show on Twitch, twitch.tv/justjoshingpodcast, or you can go to any of the platforms and listen to it. Right? You watch it. There's some cool drinking draws and stuff like that on Twitch. I definitely encourage people to see it. One of Jane's interviews is up there. If you want to see her, find a real like mistake in one of her book covers, like live on the air. It was great. It was wonderful. Like I actually still have to clip the dang thing because it was so good. But here's the thing, right? You can watch, you can listen to it. Finally, my book Alice 1. It's Alice in Wonderland is Greek mythology. Alice is Pandora. Alice chases the Queen of Hearts over the edge of the world and ends up in the Greek underworld, where to escape she must play Jason of the Argonauts, a game of croquet. In this underworld labyrinth, Alice and company face gods, monsters, and perhaps the most terrifying thing of all, themselves. It's available exclusively on Amazon right now. Come check it out.
I thought you were going to say blurbs when you said the most terrifying thing of all. I forgot that part.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. Well, thank you guys. You have been wonderful as always. We love you having you on here, and we will definitely be checking in with you again soon. As for us, we will be back. I don't know if we're back next week or the week after, but when we do come back, as always, we're going to find somebody fun to talk with and bring you some new perspectives. Till then, see you guys later.